Hello everybody, we're back once again for your usual Friday night update. I'm joined by Ben, Free and John this week as we take you through news that is short in stature but long in waffle. As well as that, one lucky subscriber to our YouTube channel will be in with a chance to pick up Kill Team Octarius when we hit 100,000 subs. So if you want to be in with a chance to win, make sure you're subscribed, and if you can, hit the bell button as well to be notified when we update on the channel. Otherwise, sit back and relax, because your weekend starts here. Hello everybody, we're back once again for another fun-filled, tightly scripted hour and a half of hobby. That's what I'm sticking with. Yes. Everything is written out in advance. I'm joined once again by John. I've also got Free.
Hi.
And half of the award-winning Tasty Boys duo.
Oh, award-winning now. Wow.
I imagine we are.
I like that.
Somebody must have given us awards.
Somebody has given us some kind of community award, yes, probably.
Yeah.
So.
Why would they not? So before we kick into this week's show, there's a little bit of an update, courtesy of Ben.
Yes.
And not at all Middle-earth related in any way, shape or form. So tell us all about it, Ben.
Okay, so Real Terrain Hobbies, as you may have seen if you were on the site last week, put together a pretty fantastic video where they showed off the final product that was their Shire build. So they'd been working on this for quite a few weeks already up until this point. And this final video kind of like tied everything together and showed off the final steps that were this amazing Shire creation, as you can see here. A lot of the components and elements that sort of went towards creating this came from Woodland Scenics. So if you have checked out their range before, a lot of the stuff that you see in this you could replicate using a lot of their bits and pieces. I weirdly went into Hobbycraft over the weekend, didn't realize they have the Woodland Scenics range in Hobbycraft. And I stood there for 15 minutes with another old man, as if I'm an old man, but an old man. And we were standing there and I was like, oh, this is nice. And he went, oh, yeah, I've really enjoyed this. We had a lovely chat. And then my girlfriend came to find me and was like, what are you doing? And I was like, talking about trees. Yeah.
So when you told me this was nothing to do with Middle-earth, that was a barefaced lie?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
Okay.
It was hidden in the tightly scripted element of the... but yeah, so yeah, it was really fantastic sort of watching through this and seeing how it all came together. One of the nice things about this actually is that the actual hobbit holes that he's created, he sculpted those himself in a 3D program. So he's going to be then bringing those to Kickstarter, and he's going to be doing not only the holes, but a couple of other sort of like additional terrain elements as well, based on what people want and their feedback and that kind of thing. So watch out for that in the near future. In addition to creating that amazing Shire board with the rolling hills and bag end and the party tree and everything, he's even got the green dragon there and everything. It's fantastic. It's making my heart leap and soar. He also teamed up with Zorpazorp, who's another creator on YouTube from the land down under, who loves his Lord of the Rings. And so painted up both a set of hobbits and also a set of ruffians for playing out a Scouring of the Shire game on this board, which I think is really, really awesome. Because while this has been done as kind of like a here's what I can do with sort of realistic scenery pieces and that kind of thing, it has been actually been made gameable. So all the pathways are like 28mm scale and all that kind of thing as well. So it's been designed so that you can play games on it, which I think is fantastic. So props to Zorpazorp in many ways, because not only did they paint these and ship the miniatures out over to America post haste, or the Americas, sorry, post haste, but also during the painting of this, suffered a power outage, and so painted the miniatures by candlelight, which does nothing for your understanding of colours, what goes where, but decidedly hobbity, I suppose. to be painting some miniatures and hobbying away by candlelight.
Yeah.
Can you not just get a daylight candle? 'Cause I've got daylight bulbs. Just get one.
That's the
turned,
sun,
like
Jerry.
sun, yeah.
Put it on Kickstarter, Jerry. Put it
Are
on
they not a thing?
Kickstarter.
No. I should go to Kickstarter. I'll throw in
Yeah,
some
you
dice
should.
with it. I'll raise
Yeah.
it to $1 million.
Exactly.
They are a stunning set of painting.
I mean,
Look at the speed he goes at as well. No wonder he gets things done so fast. He's a wizard, Harry. But it's a beautiful set of miniatures and an absolutely stunning board as well.
Really is.
Yep.
Yeah.
unbelievable.
That'll be good to see whenever it finally comes out. It'll be very handy if people are running hobbits or halfling armies for various games.
Yes.
Especially because
Which
it's
we may
just,
talk about later.
it's just a frontage, so you can build
Yeah,
them
yeah.
into, if you're not building a full 3D board like he has, you can just build them into hillsides and just use them as hills in games. The fact that you're running over the roof of some poor short fella's house is neither here nor there.
Very true.
But yeah, stunning and
But
well
no,
worth
it was
checking.
really cool, and it kind of reminded me that, you know, at some point we should get back to doing a big terrain build. Sorry, John. At some point we should do something cool like that again.
I think Warren and Lloyd are due to finish off that urban board any day now.
Oh yeah, fine. At some point, Terrainorama comes back.
Wouldn't that be amazing to see?
It's worth going to check those out. Both Real Terrain Hobbies and Zorpsop have some really good videos over on their channels. So if you want to go and check out just terrain building masterclasses, then Real Terrain Hobbies is really, really good at what he does. And Zorp does really good battle reports and painting tutorials and all sorts of different games, but in particular Lord of the Rings. And this may have somewhat influenced my return to Middle-earth recently. But
okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, as long as we know the reason behind it.
Exactly.
All we have to do is wean you off those sites. Is that what you're saying?
I can just hear every single time we mention Lord of the Rings, Jerry's eyes rolling. Just even hear them. Just even to the
bloody Tolkien again.
I'm going to paint a set of what you call those, the Heroes of Middle Earth. That little set, because I've got that, and I've got Balin's tomb still in its box to display them all on. And then just set them and put them back in a case and never look at them ever again. There you go. That'll annoy somebody. I own all of those, and I do nothing with them. Don't even chew them off. Anyway, so lovely update. But now it's time for the most important part of the week. It's time for the Indie of the Week. And this week, we're taking a look at Warbases from up in Scotland. Because this came tangentially near us last week. It was pulled into our orbit via Measures, and we're not looking at anything from Warbases on that site because they have their own website. So
it zoomed past us like a bus trying to hurry to its destination.
Yeah.
I did at some point look at it and say, but guys, what about this? And said, no, Free, it's not the way.
They've got badgers and squirrels.
Don't be hasty.
Pieces thing, yeah. So, Warbases. Do you want to start or shall I, Ben?
Go for it, Jerry.
We could double team this.
Yeah, I'll finish things off with a flare.
Okay. Well, I'll do the most important part then. So Warbases, if you're looking for Warbases and movement trays, fantastic place to come to. Obviously, everybody wants bases and movement trays, and you can see there's a whole host of them, including metric and mini hammer and bits and pieces. So there are pre-built, pre-generated ones if you're after your bases or your trays. This will be good for Lloyd. They do 1p trays. They also do custom design trays. So if you, for example, contact them and go, I need a 50mm by 100mm with a 40mm round and 5 15mm rounds behind it in this little weird shape that I had, then they will make you 3 of them so that I can have a team of kobolds herding a giant centipede towards people for my Kings of War army. They will do this thing for you. It is important though, if you are going to get into the trays, that even though they will set up as something like a Kings of War tray, let's go in there, for example, and it tells you this is a whatever, you still need to go in and actually choose the options, or you'll just end up with something very strange. Because it defaults to a small weird size that is no use for man or beast. But once you're in there, you can use those. And this is where they started. weirdly, by making bases and movement trays.
Who would have thought it with a name like Warbases?
I know. And it's still like I said, it's the best place to go.
Yeah, it's where I came to look for stuff for the War Master bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at those for the basis of everything for me to plug things into. So
yeah. Listed under things like Mini Hammer, you'll find those, or impetus bases and things like that. So you can lay your hands on them. MDF, and they'll cut them the way you want. And they'll also have a range of stuff that have magnets in them in case you have magnetic storage solutions, which is nice that all the holes are pre-drilled and you can just drop your magnet in. However, moving away from the exciting world of squares and rectangles in wood.
This is like a walk down memory lane for Beasts of War, where we just talked about bases.
Bases all the time.
To the end of the...
All about that base.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
But they also do buildings. And as you can see, there's a whole host of buildings in there. Starting from the very, very small to the very, very sci-fi. So you can go from 10 mil if you are playing, well, War Master or Pendragon-based fantasy sort of things. You can get those in various styles. To more esoteric pieces, some of the ones I like. I'll fire a few of these open here. So 55th Day in China is a particularly interesting one because it's a range of some figures and also miniatures. But it's the Boxer Rebellion. So there was a 55-day siege as part of the Boxer Rebellion with the international legation. I think it was in Beijing. I'm not entirely certain, but they were under siege for 55 days. And the Boxer Rebellion is one of these things that doesn't get covered a huge amount. Although Wargames Atlantic, I think, are working on a set of boxers.
They are making a new set of plastics.
So so at the moment they have some models from Scotia Grendel to fill the gaps. You can have your villagers and the various sort of civilians that you would see, but in amongst them they also have then things like hand carts for scatter terrain and also pagodas and buildings. In fact, I think they even have Zoo's house in here. I will just go there. So get rid of that. You can get your little ox cart and then get an oxen to tie it to and push it around the place.
That's so cool.
And there are absolutely gorgeous miniatures. Now, I know there are places that do pre-colored and pre-primed and multi-layered and blah, 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 blah. At which point you will end up paying more because there's an additional level of detailing or coloration on them already. So you don't have the colored options here. You're working on the bare wood. But I'll take the price reduction to be able to fill a board with the stuff. And I mean, the use of that's actually punched card because they do a set of tiling and you can buy additional bits and pieces for scratch building or for detailing your stuff. So I have multiple sheets of tiles from them in a variety of ways. And they've used the fact that the card bends to get that lovely curve that you would see on really Chinese structures. It's really, really nice.
It's is it difficult to paint MDF?
No, not really.
No.
There's two ways of looking at it. I go seal it and then paint it and it's fine. I know some people go, you don't need to seal it, you can just spray straight over the top. But I find sometimes the fibers that were compressed to make the MDF are really visible when you just spray straight over the top of it.
Yeah.
So I would always start with either a sealer, a specific wood sealer, or just put down PVA will do the job as well.
Oh, so, that's good.
So the MDF element of these, obviously they've got the kind of burned-in detail, which is weird because that's another company. But but with things like the roofs and stuff like that, for that sort of cardboard stuff, are the actual details like reasonably clear in those?
Yeah, they're still laser cut into them.
Etched, like.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if you.
So they're not going to vanish.
You're not going to lose it.
Unless you're particularly heavy-handed with your paint. If you're breaking out the Dulux household emulsion, you probably will lose a bit of it there. Yeah. But otherwise, you should be fine.
Cool.
Apart from the Boxer Rebellion, which we'll probably come back to at some point in the future when more people are making Boxer things. The Starbase 962 is a nice set of sci-fi bits and pieces that range from, I suppose, scattery type things to wall sections and podlings.
This would be great for Infinity, this stuff.
Yeah. they're also starting to do mixed acrylic pieces as well. So
Infinity, yeah.
Yep. And again, just small, simple things. These are 15 mil. So good for Star Grunts, or I'm trying to think of the name of the other 15 mil one. It'll come back to me. It won't.
Bolt it onto any rules set that has come out from Rebel Miniatures in the last couple of years.
Well, that too. But you get really nice. I mean, for the size of it, really nice little control towers and bits and bobs.
They've not skimped on the detail, sort of the detail pieces. So you've got things like the air vents and things on the top, which is quite nice, and the extra detail worked into the struts and things.
Yeah,
because that could very easily have just been,
Yeah, and the use of again
wood,
coloured acrylic as a laminate between the two sections of basing on the bottom, so you don't just have through and through sort of holes. You've got that beamy type thing going on there, which is really nice to see.
Careful when slotting those in. Don't stick
brilliant.
them in and then spray it, because then.
No, don't do that.
Bollocks.
Try for everything. Take the acrylic away, spray it to your heart's content, and then return with the acrylic afterwards.
Like me back in the day, sticking together a Falcon Graph tank, putting the cockpit on, then spraying it and going, well, that ruined that.
Brilliant.
It's a way to go. But
there's a pilot in there somewhere.
There's something so simple on MDF. The acrylic really changes it and brings it into sci-fi. Just something so simple as a small sheet of acrylic.
Yeah, I think it's a great way of doing it. We see an awful lot of it in 28mm. There aren't many people that I'm aware of doing 15mm versions of them. Yeah. But there you see, we've got
playable interiors as well.
Two radar dishes. Surely it's too many, but they've still got things like the air vents on the side, fans.
The door,
they've got everything you would expect to see on a 28mm scale piece of kit, which should mean painting them up relatively easy task, because you can just color code things, just two-tone the lot of it. Grey and red, away you go. If I come back to our buildings, though, as you can see, there is a whole host. Hang on, let's just dump that. Otherwise, I'll get baffled by what I'm doing here. There's a whole host in here between 15, 20, and 28mm. So you should be able to lay your hands on things that
What's in the dark and deep dungeon section? Do they actually do dungeon sections?
They do dungeon sections.
Oh.
They do.
How deep is this dungeon?
As deep as your love.
As deep as you want it to be, because apart from buying things like pre-constructed rooms, so the barracks and the armory, you can also lay your hands on as many walls, doors, and sections that you need. The dungeon starter set's quite cute as well. Let's do that.
It's pretty neat. Yeah.
So you can just get in there and go, I'm just going to start doing these up. I think they're based to 1-inch sections.
Oh, okay.
So the quad,
right.
So that they should be relatively defined when you're playing through games. If you are playing a board game and you're upscaling it, or if you're incorrectly playing an RPG using miniatures in a dungeon, then you can also use them for that.
It actually looks like they've done something with the doors there, where you can open the door with
hinged,
the little.
Those are hinged, and then you've also got the big portcullis. You can lift it out the top.
It's the little things.
It is the little things
that make you play with the model when you. Everyone makes the sounds. Everyone likes things that open. So
I know.
Yeah.
Also, they've gone with a mechanical locking system as well when you're building the walls. So that's why you need the end caps and connectors.
Right.
That will just cap off the top and bottom, and should stop you having to worry about them sliding around without having to stick magnets into every umpteenth section of wall. Which I'm all for, because after a while you will just get bored sticking magnets in. Well, you will. It's true.
Yeah, you will.
You so will. I'll have one more look at something in here, because, I'm sure we've other places to go, and I'm positive you have other things to talk about. So I'll have a quick look at the Napoleonics.
I was going to say we should also look at the World War II stuff, because I want to see whether or not they just do Normandy or if they do other things as well. That's
I think they do.
You becoming a historical snob, then?
Well,
it's only good if they do more than Normandy now.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. I want to see other theatres of war. Thank you very much.
Well, technically, technically, there's no reason why you can't use that in your World War II.
Very true.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about historics. You can intermingle
What is
periods.
that? Is that pre-painted, this one?
No, they've just got somebody to paint it.
Cool.
None of these are pre-painted. You have to do them all yourself. It's terrible, really. Ideally, you want somebody to do it for you.
That sounds like Jerry work to me.
Yeah.
Been told that in the past.
I'm getting dangerous flashbacks here. Do it all yourself.
That's great, isn't it?
Love that. That's great.
Row for
Perfect for like little
I'm
scenario pieces and things.
Yeah. See, this can be used for fantasy as well.
Yeah. Very much so. Your classic medieval European village somewhere. Perfect for that.
There's a set of the roof tiles not included in this set. You can buy them separately and stick them on it if you want to do it. Or you can just get a cardboard box, finish your cereal, finish your sugar puffs, and then just start making tiles like we used to in the old days.
Do they still make sugar puffs, or are they like too full of sugar now?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. Right.
I think they've renamed them.
What did the honey monster do about that? But
he got diabetes.
Yeah.
I think they're now called honey puffs because
they're honey puffs or something.
There was no sugar in them.
Right.
That was the whole point. Don't forget the honey mummy. But just saying. Anyway, where was I looking for here?
Look at World War II. And Chain of Command, I guess, as well.
Chain of Command she'll be World War II-ish anyway. I'll have a wee look.
They've got a lot. I mean, we're only on the kind of third little bit at the top.
Yeah. So Chain of Command is obviously more World War II-ish.
Well, they do a Bailey Bridge.
They do. And they also do things like, if you're playing very British Civil War and you want to do things like, dig for victory, there's your coal frame out in your back garden where you're growing your old veg because of rationing. You can do that.
That's brilliant.
Or your chicken coop. They do sell chickens, by the way, as well.
Brilliant.
Because
little
sometimes you need stuff like that. I've got a couple of packs of chickens. No idea why. Really bridge for John.
That's really good stuff. I like those.
Yeah. It adds to it, especially when you're playing games. I dislike seeing just the static buildings sitting in the middle of nowhere by themselves with no reason to be there.
That's a handsome Bailey Bridge.
Yeah, I thought you like that.
I like that.
Look at that gird ring. Sweet.
The girder work is superb.
World War II, more of the same.
Nice.
It's all Low Countries.
It's none of it's Normandy, Ben.
Don't worry.
No, there's bunkers. That's close enough.
There's also a French railway station.
Dead Man's Corner.
That's gorgeous, that house at Dead Man's Corner.
What's the house at Dead Man's Corner?
Oh, don't worry, it's open. You'll see it in a second. We'll have a look at Urquhart's attic. Some of you may remember this as Sean Connery.
The Bridge Too Far.
Bridge Too Far. That's Sean Connery hiding up top while the Germans are hunting him. And
the house at Dead Man's Corner. That's I've never seen someone do that before.
That's gorgeous.
I've been to that house in real life.
Really? Oh, cool.
It's now a museum. So I went there and they have a whole ton of stuff.
What role did it play within the war?
It was sitting on a crossroads between two of the Normandy beaches. So the airborne had dropped in and were like, it's just outside Carentan. And the whole idea was that was it the 101st, the 82nd? It's the 82nd, isn't it? Slim Jim Gavin, 82nd. Yes, Carentan. Dropping it. They're trying to stop German reinforcements getting to the beaches, so they were trying to take Carentan, and Dead Man's Corner was like on these crossroads that went between
cool.
Jerry, is it Utah and Omaha? It's American sector. I think it's Utah and Omaha.
Don't hold me to it.
Dead Man's Corner became like this little flashpoint, and they called it Dead Man's Corner because an American tank had tried to drive through, got knocked out on the crossroads, and morbidly the commander was hanging out of it dead for several days or a couple of weeks or something like that.
Lovely.
That's why they call it Dead Man's Corner. So,
wow.
But it's cool to actually have a model of that. You could do that in a scenario, which would be cool.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's really nice. It's slightly different, which is cool. So very cool. Right.
before we dive in, because I know you're dying to get to Bifrost, the accessories and the from scratch section are well worth visiting for people, because you have things like resin scenery and street furniture and scatter to add to the buildings, and the scratch give you things like the tiling sheets and door shutters. So the buildings are relatively basic, but then you can come in afterwards and you can go, okay, well, I want to add a bit more detail to it. And even though that one says classic slate, I know that there are multiple types. There we go. So classic, you get colonial shingles, you get hex tiles, Scandi.
That's cool.
And Victorian
dragon
tile.
Scales.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So and those are again laser cut and printed on. They're actually printed on something weird. And that's all I'm going to say about it. They're sitting behind me. They're not printed on cardboard, but it's like an A4. You get an A4 sheet for £2.
Yeah, A4 card.
Yeah. They say card, but it's so strange. It really is.
Maybe it's printed on something weird. That's
maybe it's printed on something weird.
Maybe it's a material that only exists in Scotland.
Yeah.
While Jerry goes hoking for it. Well, there we go. He's found it.
Got it.
Jerry knows where everything is. Jerry just sometimes can't reach it. That's the only problem with that. Do this. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'd like to point out the top comes double-sided so that you put that as your top row and flatten it so you don't end up with a gap between the eaves of your house. But it has a...
It looks almost like paper. But
it looks like paper. Yeah. It's fairly robust, though, because that's...
Wow.
There we go. It's finally gone. But it also has a slight bubbling on it. And by that, I mean...
Textured.
Like a textured imprint. For whatever way they've done it. It obviously smells wonderful as well because it's all burnt. Burning.
Yeah.
He's going to rub down his face through.
Cover his beard in tiles now.
I keep buying these with the idea that I'm going to actually build some buildings and tile them, and then I never get around to it. So I'm still quiet in my... Anytime I'm ordering anything from Warbases, I stick another sheet of tiles in there as well because you never know where I'm going. They'll come in handy someday. Anyway, back to the site.
As well as all the tokens and the terrain and things, they have like a figurine section. So that is a selection of like stuff that is from other companies, but a lot of it is also from themselves as well, which is really nice. And they do, as you can see here, the lovely animals. So you know that army of Farthing Wood that I was planning to do many millennia ago, by which I mean earlier this year. I never got around to. You could definitely do that with this, which is really cool. So you can have your little badgers running forward and stuff, which is nice.
And it's packs of hounds. You can have your foxes and ducks and geese and all sorts.
I'm just really, sitting there with my mouth open. I'm not even saying because I'm like, wow.
It's really good for those people that want it because there's always some kind of like cattle rustling scenario that you can do in, the Dark Ages or whatever. But you could also use this for kind of building character into a landscape before the war begins or the battle begins. So you have things like all these animals on the farm and all that kind of stuff. And then as the fighting begins, move them out of the way as your troops come through and sort of chase them off and all that kind of stuff too. So it's a really nice little set for kind of building narrative into things. And it's also kind of handy for those people that want to sort of work on dioramas and vignettes and that kind of thing as well. So
yeah, I also quite like the fact that you have mules, horses, and oxen in tack because they do sell a lot of chariots, carts, that sort of thing without any animals, and a lot of companies do. And then you have to go and source the animals somewhere separately so that your carts aren't just abandoned in the street.
Are these predominantly metal? I saw the chickens earlier in metal.
Yeah, these are all metal. They do have some bits and pieces resin cast but they tend to be more what you call them, scattered terrain and bits and pieces like that.
Yeah.
But apart from decorating your tabletop,
you can also dive down into a little bit of dungeon delving. So obviously we saw the little dungeon set that they were doing as part of their building selection there. But one of the more recent ranges that they've opened up is the Bifrost Miniatures range. And because obviously a lot of people are diving into role-playing games over the last couple of years, playing a lot more D&D, they decided to create their own range of figures that you could use. in Dungeons and Dragons or whatever fantasy game takes your fancy. So a lot of the time they've focused on sort of like those core classes that you will know and love from D&D. So you've got sorcerers, druids, and all that kind of thing as well. But some of the more recent stuff they've been doing over the last couple of months is adding things in like the NPC packs that you see here and monster packs. So a little bit almost similar to a lot of other companies, like for example, Otherworld, who do things like this. They'll have sets of adventures that you can pick up or individual adventures, but then they'll also do like encounter packs. So you get your set of 4 goblins that would be a good scenario for like a first level party or something. And so you'll be able to go and pick up that set of goblins, paint them up and get them used for your games. So it's really nice for people who are maybe just getting started and love the idea of using miniatures with or without terrain. Maybe you're just using like battle maps and that kind of thing. Pick these up. Paint just what you need for those scenarios, and they're relatively cheap as well comparatively to a lot of other stuff out there. So if you're maybe not won over by the plastic stuff that maybe WizKids are doing, or you don't particularly want to buy some of the more pricey metals and resins out there, you can just come and pick up some of these fairly cheap metal miniatures from the folks at Warbases and just have fun with them and dive in. I believe they were planning to show these off at Salute last year. Obviously, that got cancelled. And then Salute this year was going to be in April, and they were going to show them off then, but obviously that didn't happen. So this November, I think they're going to be bringing these along in their multitudes to show off at the event. But obviously, you can buy them online right now if you want to as well, which is cool. So,
I think they're still going to have something clever for Salute in November.
I think there probably will be some more stuff, yes.
Yeah. On Monday past, they put up a teaser, which is just a piece of art. It's a piece of art, like a logo called Lochwalia. And they just put a little tag beside it going, coming soon, welcoming you to a fantasy world.
Well, they have done some Highland Wars already, so it'll be interesting to see where they go.
Right around the corner.
I don't know if it's just going to be an extended range with a more Scottish or Celtic feel, or
like the ones there.
or if it's actually going to be a game system.
That could be very interesting, because obviously they've got the collection for it now, and Otherworld did their own kind of like little miniatures game alongside their skirmishy stuff, so it would make sense for them to do.
Those are lovely looking, those dwarves.
The eye patch.
They're great.
Yeah,
he's very nice, very Genghis Khan. I like this one with the Lochaber axe there.
I like the lady in the bottom with the red hair and the spear. She looks badass. She used to be fighting a bear or something. Yeah.
Yes. Get a bear. What's going on here?
You don't need dwarves. You just get a badger.
Oh,
yes. Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
The thing that's quite nice about the range as well is that, and you can see it in a lot of these packs that we're looking at here, is that they do a good mix between male and female miniatures as well. So one of the things you often find is it'll be like, we're going to do a range of adventurers, but they're all male or they're all female. Whereas in this, they've done like a good mix between the two, which is really cool. So, and they're also like, they tend to have gone for a lot of the more classic races. Or lineages or whatever you want to say it. So you've got things like your drow, and you've got gnomes and half elves and orcs and half orcs and humans, but they are starting to branch out and do sort of quirkier ones as well, which is quite nice as well. So there will be something in there for you to pick up and play around with, which I think is nice. So
that spider's a bit nightmare fuel there.
A bit Shelob.
It looks a bit too real.
Giant spider with eggs and victims.
Yep.
Plural.
Perfect if you're playing Rangers of Shadow Deep.
Yeah.
So,
That's a cool.
The Kobold personality pack. I love that it's a personality
pack. Yeah.
Dog face bastards. That's what
they are. They're full of personality. Bless.
And one's even got a candle. Somebody. So, yeah.
There's a lot of different poses on all these miniatures, though.
Yeah. It's really nice.
They're all very different.
It does remind me of the old style of miniature release for RPGs and for skirmish games, where sort of everyone was a personality, a distinct little sculpt, before people decided that what they really needed was a mass battle game, at which point then you got 3 variations and then maybe 3 interpretations of each variation. So you had the same body part was used, but maybe they changed the head or changed the arms each time.
What's an owlbear?
What's an owlbear?
Have you ever seen an owlbear? Oh my god!
We will be showing you an owlbear in a moment.
Oh my
I
days!
just saw that, and there was a guy standing. He looked like a man in an owlbear costume, but I'm quite intrigued.
Owlbears are amazing.
I like how he's missing an arm.
I've never heard of it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, you don't often see that these days. Poor skeletons falling apart.
Oh,
Owlbears are very important because Sean Connery rides on one. He does.
look at this guy.
Owlbears are classic D&D.
This guy looks like a referee or something. Look at him.
Hello, come in the forest. I will savage you. I will seriously.
That's petrifying. Do you think their head goes all the way around as well?
Oh, yeah. You can't sneak up on an owlbear.
No.
You only make that mistake once.
Well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Have a little monk, because that's pretty cute.
Nice.
Proper monk pose as well. I was going to bounce here until an owlbear sneaks up behind me.
I'm going to be having nightmares.
There are so many D&D classics that you need to be introduced to then, Free.
I've never heard of an owlbear.
I was like, an owlbear, of course. And then it's like, what's an owlbear? Oh my god.
I've never heard of an owlbear before. Well,
you know what a bugbear is, Free? A bugbear?
A bugbear? Yeah,
okay.
we're having a bugbear.
Ettins, yeah, you know Ettins, yeah.
Ettins?
Okay. Two-headed, like, giant troll creatures.
No, so you're going to...
that you know that these are all, par for the course. We're so aware of all of these things all the time. There you can see one of the larger kits.
Yeah.
The nice thing is,
I
get very argumentative with my bald self in the future. That's what happens come the radioactive post-apocalypse.
Very true.
We all knew the risks. A stunning range of stuff for the Bifrost, and it'd be fascinating to see where they go as well.
Yeah.
And what Lochwalia becomes.
Yeah, as I say, I think one of the things that would be really nice to see them do is to kind of look at the slightly more esoteric kind of races and stuff from D&D that don't normally get covered. So I'd love to see, as I say, they've done things like gnomes, dwarves, humans, elves, and that kind of stuff. But I'd love to see some tieflings in there, dragonborn, Goliaths, and that kind of thing. Look at Genasi and that kind of stuff too, because a lot of people are branching out beyond those sort of core fantasy archetypes at the moment. And playing all those different sort of styles of character, so it'd be really nice to see them do something on that front.
I'm always up to see more Dragonborn.
Oh yes,
I'm all about the Dragonborn.
Dragonborn are awesome.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see what they come up with and how they expand over time. That's our indie, folks. If you're unaware of Warbases up in Scotland, now you know, and you've no excuse. And if you happen to see them at Salute, you should definitely go and check out what they've got and what they are producing in the future.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
So, back with some news for another week. We are diving into Sim Games workshopian stuff to begin with, as we look at what is going to be available to pre-order this weekend for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So, the Stormcast Eternals and the Orruk Warclans are getting themselves some bonus goodies to help build on their forces this weekend. Pre-orders are going to go live for the new battle tomes for both of the factions. So you're going to get one for the Stormcast Eternals and one for the Orruk Warclans. We'll see that a little bit later. You're also going to get the War Scroll boxes that you can see there, which come with all of the rules printed onto their cards so that you can read those rather than flicking through a book while playing your games. Pretty good, pretty handy. I've seen a lot of people using those. They are pretty fun stuff as long as they stay in stock. Which is always a thing. In addition to that, at least for the Stormcast Eternals, we have a couple of new miniatures and also some returning ones. So leading the way is the Knight Judicator. So the Judicators are the bowmen, the archers of the Stormcast Eternals. And here we now have a knight version of one of those. So this is one of their leaders that can hunt down big old monsters with those pair of Griffhounds that they have next to them. Pretty cool looking miniature. It's not often you see those big oval bases in play, but they are definitely a thing now. We're also seeing even more Griff Hounds. This time they're bigger, and they are pulling along a Storm Strike chariot, as you can see there. So this is continuing to build on that kind of almost Roman Greek aesthetic that I think you get when it comes to the Stormcast Eternals, especially in their new kind of like Thunderstrike armor. You can arm them with, well, you always get the passenger with the axe to the side, but you can switch out the bow for a spear, I believe, as part of this kit. So you can make them as a melee-focused unit or a ranged one if you want to pick and prod at your enemy from afar.
She looks awfully familiar. Didn't she get cut in half by a scythe chariot in Gladiator?
That is weirdly accurate. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Now everyone's going to watch Gladiator now. Fed it.
You're welcome.
Always a good reason to watch Gladiator. As well as that, we have a couple of returning miniatures. So these were previously, I believe, only available as part of the Souls Wars box. So you're going to be able to get your hands on a Lord Arcanum and an Evocator Prime for you to use in your Stormcast Eternal forces. For those people not familiar with the kind of lore and stuff within Age of Sigmar, during the second edition of the game, there was a big whole necroquake caused by Nagash, and this was corrupting some of the spirits of the Stormcast Eternals, who are obviously reforged time and time again by Sigmar. This chamber was set up with these fellows at the head of them in order to make sure that there were no impurities in the gene seed, I mean their spirit. So as you can them. So yes, you have a spellcaster there and an Evocator Prime who are there to make sure that their spirits are whole as they are reforged once again by Sigmar on the Anvil of Apotheosis. I'm happy that I remember the name. There we go.
Well done, you.
I really want to swap the sword and the staff around on the foot. I just think having the staff... I know why they've done it. They didn't want two casters with this practically the same staff raised aloft.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I think it would look better staff up and blocking an attack with the sword horizontally.
Yeah, I get that. But yep, nice to see some returning miniatures at least for Warhammer Age of Sigmar and the Stormcast Eternals there, as if they don't have enough already. But
a range that definitely needs more of the Stormcast Eternals.
Exactly. We also have on the Orruk Warclans side of things their new Battle Tome and the new War Scroll cards set. Just like with the basically all of their book releases on the first weekend, they are actually going to be available as almost like a full art print version of them. So it won't have the title on it and then the bars and stuff at the top and the sides. It'll just be the artwork on the front. So if you're interested in the limited edition versions, those do exist as well for you to go and pick up. But the Orruk Warclans are going to get some new stuff. Obviously no returning things because they are a new sort of sub-faction within the Orruk Warclans. You have the Breaker Boss on Mireboot Troggoth there, as you can see, looking very, very cool. With an impressive gut plate as well.
I love that gut plate.
Impressive.
All I can see is Krang. Shredder!
That's quite on point. As well as that, obviously, this has got those two massive clubs, as you can see there, and the rider on the back of them. It's very much sort of focusing in on that kind of Peter Jackson Battle of Five Armies style aesthetic that they've got to a lot of the stuff for the Orruk Warclans and the Cruel Boys. But I think it looks pretty cool.
Tuning fork of Doom up top.
Exactly. Yeah.
The more you look at it, the more detail you see, don't you? Like, I'm just kind of looking. It would be Games Workshop if there wasn't 10,000 skulls on them anyway. But other than the skulls, they're just with the little hooks and they're just every individual.
The skulls,
they have considering there's a couple hanging down from the odd place, and there's one on it. There's a skull on his skull, but there's quite a lot of detail. How big is this one?
I'm going to say this is yay high, and by yay I mean probably be about 4 Stormcasts tall, I would imagine.
That's probably a 60mm base.
That's what I'm thinking. So if that's a 60mm base, then he's probably not a kick in the bum off.
70, 80.
Yeah.
Well, possibly not.
Big boy.
3 or 4 orcs high, I would imagine, yeah. But pretty good, actually, especially if you're going to try and make a more sort of joined up Orruk Warclans force. If it's not going to be specifically Cruel Boys, you could obviously put these in along things like the big Troggoths and stuff that they already have, maybe some Sons of Behemat as well, and that kind of thing. Tie them all underneath that Kragnos sort of aesthetic as him being like the leader of all destruction and that kind of thing. So yeah, pretty cool.
And obviously do all your Krang impressions as well.
Yes, always speak in third person. Always.
Yeah. We also have the Beast Skewer Killbow. So the Cruel Boys had some sort of cruel archers as part of the initial Dominion set, but this is sort of like their big ballista version of that. So it's used for hunting down big monsters and skewering Stormcast through the chest and pinning them to the ground. I would also imagine it would be pretty handy against dragons, which are on the way soon.
Yes. It's very Bard the Bowman. Very Bard the Bowman.
Or, well, we've seen what one ballista on the front of a ship can do to a dragon in Game of Thrones.
Yep. R.I.P.
So, well, they all knew it was coming.
In addition to the miniatures that you see there, as well as the battle tomes, you're also going to be able to pick up a whole bunch of dice sets. So if you're interested in picking up specific dice sets for the Stormcast Tales and the Orruk Warclans, they will have those. And they're also going to be making 4 different dice sets, which are themed to order, death, destruction, and chaos. That's always the 4th one I forget. You'll be able to go and chaos is everywhere. But there you go.
And unicorns.
And unicorns. Yes. And rainbow fairies. Yeah. So you go and you can go and pick those up as well, which is cool. Snag those if you want to make a particularly themed set of accessories to go alongside your games, I guess.
Get up early, start hitting F5.
Very much
That's how that one goes.
Saturday morning, be ready.
Speaking of Saturday morning, and the best part of Saturday morning, cartoons.
Oh, yes, of course.
Atomic Mass. Games have got some re-releases, new releases. Everything old is new again.
Yeah, so obviously Atomic Mass Games have already done Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus, as part of the initial core set of Marvel Crisis Protocol. But this pair of miniatures that you see here, who are looking very dynamic and awesome, especially in the case of Dr. Octopus, are part of what is called their Rival Panels kits. So Rival Panels kits are slightly more pricey than the average kit, but they come with 2 bespoke, different alternative miniatures for you to use in your games of Crisis Protocol, alongside the massive sort of diorama piece that you see there in the background. And obviously, as it has been designed in this way, it's all like it's part of a scene, as if it's like a double-page spread in a comic book, which I think is pretty cool. So you've got Dr. Octopus on one side, lunging forward to try and take out Peter Parker, Spider-Man, or it could be another Spider-Man, who knows, as they're diving away from explosion. So very, very cool indeed. In addition to the miniatures and the terrain, and obviously the cards that you need to play them in normal games, you also get foil versions of their stat cards, which is always fancy.
Ooh, shiny.
Everybody loves a shiny. You'll also find a couple of different upgrade cards and stuff in there as well, but they're not required really if you don't want to pick this up in its entirety. So yeah, very cool little kit that is pretty nice for those collectors out there.
Yeah, I've 2 things on this. One, this is the way to sell miniatures for Crisis Protocol, because can you imagine your display cabinet if there's a bunch of these out?
Oh, you're right.
All these super cool characters on this diorama base that's just for them and everything. Secondly, every time someone says Dr. Octopus, all I can hear in my head is the old YouTube meme of Dr. Octagonopus, and I can't unhear that anymore. If anyone else gets that reference, that's
I do.
Dr. Octagonopus. There you go.
Yeah, I get it.
I feel so old.
Do you know what? I think one thing I love about these in particular is they are integrated within the terrain really easy by the bases. I love that with a lot of miniatures, how they don't look just so put in. It genuinely looks like there's something there. And another thing that I love about these is over the time I've kind of been looking at miniatures and just resin and different types of accessories you can have to put your miniature as if they're up in the air. This is better. I've said it before and I will say it again. I hate those see-through stands, and I am so glad that people are being more imaginative with how to give them more levels without kind of just putting them there and then you can see this line.
Weirdly, as nice as the miniatures are, it's the terrain that they're sitting on that's really drawing my eye, because it is
really cool.
Like you say, it's like a splash page from a comic. They're on the 63rd level of something that's under construction. Doc Ock has a piece of girder in one tentacle that he's about to wing at Peter's head. There's already one embedded going through a girder behind it.
And it's still going through it because it's still got motion on it.
Still got motion. There's still the rocks being knocked away. Petey's already had to stick a bit of webbing up there to stop other parts collapsing. So the whole thing tells a story. I know some people were looking at it going, why? Why do these two again? They're in the core set. And, well, two reasons. One, why not? Especially with the new film coming up. But also, you don't need to buy the core set.
No.
Yeah.
The core set was very handy for the initial couple of months when there were no other models and you need 10 figures to play. And yes, you get them at a bargain basement price. But for people coming in now, they've got dozens of models. I think there may not be a kick in the bum off 80, maybe 90. They're getting up towards 100 releases for this thing.
And the rules are all online. So.
The rules are all online because it's a living rule book. All you need is the cards. So if you want Doc and Spidey but don't want the rest of the core set, maybe you don't care about Crossbones and Black Widow and Red Skull, and you're just buying it for the sake of getting them. In this case, you just go, well, you know what? I'll have those, and I can set that up on the shelf behind me, have a nice display piece, and then still have two really nice versions of Spider-Man and Doctor.
It did make me think about other rival panels that they're going to do in the future, because I would imagine they will do them. Oh, yeah. I'd love to see, I mean, I love my Thor, I love my Loki. Thor versus Loki would be cool. Other
Alligator
people suggested.
Alligator Loki or regular Loki?
Let's have Alligator Loki doing it, actually. Captain America versus Red Skull could be nice in like a final showdown in an exploding facility or something.
Oh, the Fantastic Four ones could be amazing. Imagine Ben Grimm all out there and with everything going on around
that would be cool.
Punching.
Oh my God, versus
Victor
Dr. Doom.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. See.
Or is it a Doom bot? Dun, dun, dun.
I still think they should do, if they do a Doom on Throne and then just have multiple Doom bots with him, I would just love that to bits.
That would be really cool.
Because they've done Hulk, Buster, Iron Man, and Iron Man as a 2-pack now. So having two of the same hero essentially in the same box is not a major problem for them. So having a throned Victor with a couple of dynamic moving Von Dooms, and then you can either run them as Doom bots, or you could run one as Victor Von Doom. So you don't have to have him sitting down. He could actually be running, skipping, jumping, whatever it is.
That'd be cool.
I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's not Latvian.
I know what it is. It's a weird made-up country.
Latveria.
Something
like that.
I think it is Latveria.
Yeah. You could have him there in his castle, wondering why the Fantastic Four keep breaking in and knocking all his stuff over. Yeah.
Just leave me be. Well, I don't know why he's now Skeletor, but
it works.
That too. Or a more dynamic Kingpin. They've done a Kingpin model. He's
Kingpin
very nice.
Nice.
Doing it, but he's very static. He exudes Kingpinness of just standing there staring at people, but having one of them going full beatdown on a Daredevil, Punisher, Spider-Man. Daredevil, let's say.
Wolverine versus Hulk.
Guardians. You could have Groot and Rocket. Imagine the terrain for Groot of it coming out.
That'd be cool.
I think they have those with.
Can we just have Deadpool versus everyone else?
Deadpool
versus Wolverine.
Yeah.
Just make it the movie meme.
Yeah. It's one way of doing it.
Have a tombstone in the background.
Yeah, the Tony Go old man Logan style. Yeah.
So sticking with the world of cartoons, Transformers are coming to the tabletop.
They are indeed. So a couple of weeks ago, Renegade Con was on, and this was online only, but they made some really awesome announcements as well. So not only is Transformers going onto a deeper level, but they're going to a role-playing game, which I find really, really interesting. So now players can make their own Autobot team and take down the Decepticons in the brand new RPG. So they go within the universe. There is a regular rule book available as well as a deluxe edition as well. So if you do just want the rule book just to kind of flick through, go through kind of your character creation, GM. But if you did want the deluxe version, you'll get the GM screen, the dice, the rule book as well alongside, because you can get everything you can to get started.
Nice.
So as this is an already established universe, I presume a lot of Transformers fans are going to head to. So if you do need help creating your ideal Autobot, there is stuff in the rule book as well. But what kind of car would you guys pick if you were to have? What kind of where would you go for this? If you were to create your own Autobot, where would you go?
I'd immediately create Sam Witwicky. Or whatever Megan Fox's character was. Is that not why people watch Transformers? No,
yes,
not for the humans.
The film, everything blowing up.
Michael Bay.
Yes.
Not
Somebody
humans, Michael.
No.
I just want to see robots punching each other. I don't know.
Mustang.
Mustang.
I was
nice.
thinking something muscle car-ish, but that may just be because I'm rewatching Supernatural.
Well, yeah. You can't have a Chevy Impala. You're not allowed.
No, you sure? It's been amazing.
I don't know. I don't know how well this will land with any of you, but I would role play an Autobot that was the Hindenburg, and I would fly that thing into Unicron, and I would end that travesty of a movie before it even started.
Wow.
Well, yeah, that'll do. That will do it. But you do go up against the Autobots not the Autobots, the Decepticons as well. So who else are you going to go up against? So you do get to meet as well as the established characters, such as Optimus Prime, RC. But you get to look into the details of weaponry that you're allowed, how it goes into combat. So I'd be really interested to see how this would go into combat as well. So if you do think you're a bit of a collector for Transformers as well, the deluxe edition has got a foil kind of equivalent, shiny as we say, shiny crow eyes.
We should buy this. We should buy this for Lloyd, because maybe he'll actually play a role-playing game.
As a train.
As a train.
Oh, yeah.
As a vehicle. But as well as the Transformers RPG being announced at Renegade Con, there was also the announcement for a G.I. Joe RPG and a Power Rangers RPG. So all of these are all up to be pre-ordered with their range of books, whether it be deluxe and the accessories needed, such as the GM screen.
That's what I'm looking at, yeah.
And they can all be pre-ordered now. So if you are feeling a bit of a nostalgia to dip into in an RPG platform, you should definitely give it a look.
I just realised that every session of the Power Rangers would end exactly the same.
What do you mean?
You'd go down to you'd fight all the putty men.
Yep.
Then Rita Repulsa would summon a monster. Then you'd die to the monster, or you get beaten up by the monster. Then you'd go into your Megazord, and then you'd beat the monster. And that's, if you stick into the Saturday morning cartoon, that's how it goes.
Well, exactly. That's short campaigns, isn't it? That's very short campaigns. Perfect for your games night. You already know how this plays out. All you need is Ivan Ooze and singing "Uh-oh, you're in trouble," and you're sorted. So, yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me is that all three of them lend themselves to one-shots.
Yeah.
The same way the Star Trek RPG was written that you would play episodic, so everything is self-contained. They can be part of a grander arc or campaign, but you don't have to worry about this week leading to next week, leading to the week after. You just have your own little, here's our show for an hour, 2 hours, whatever you're playing.
It really plays to the big monster of the week thing that a lot of those shows were famous for. So.
Yeah. Now, it uses an E20 system, of which none of us have been able to find out anything.
Apparently it exists on Google, but apart from that, I don't really know anything about it.
Beyond the fact that it uses all the polyhedrals plus an additional D20, so there are two D20 in there. It will be fascinating to see how that actually plays out. I can't imagine it's going to be over-engineered.
You wouldn't have thought so.
That was a wise choice of word there, engineer, talking about Transformers. Well done.
But it'll be fascinating to see, because the issue with this will be you're trying to bridge a gap between the original 30, 40, 50-year-old people who watched them when they came out initially and modern generation. And therefore you have a very tight line to follow where you go. This needs to appeal to somebody who would be into more complex games, but also you don't want to make it so complex that it shuts out all the kids who could be getting into it off the back of the fact they're cartoons. So
yeah, I feel the same way about Power Rangers as well. Power Rangers is exactly the same. Power Rangers has been around since I was a kid, and now you've obviously Power Rangers is still going, and it's got its own franchise that's growing, like Transformers. Not so much G.I. Joe. I haven't seen him around much.
Well, G.I. Joe's still going. What they do is every now and again they release a terrible film that upsets everybody as part of a plan.
Yeah, sure.
Well, they've just released the newest prequel movie, haven't they? The Snake Eyes.
Yeah. The Snake Eyes movie is particularly terrible. As anybody who read the original Snake Eyes origin back in the day, which I have, which was amazingly good.
Yeah.
As he came home from war in Vietnam and ended up joining Storm Shadow's ninja family, and it was in depth, it was beautiful, it was well written, and then they vomited forth this new Snake Eyes film that everybody's going to hate. I could say one good thing about it: they didn't put lips on the mask like they've done in the previous.
Oh my god, yes!
What was that all about? We thought that was a look that people were crying out for. I need a latex mask with lips. No.
Like a Batman suit with nipples. Nobody needs it.
Yeah, nobody needs it. Oh, could we cobble together a latex superhero outfit from the worst parts? Nipple breastplate, the lipped mask.
Wow.
In the comments, what else could go in there? Somebody's going to mention the Black Russian codpiece from Blackadder, but he's not a superhero, so that one is out.
I'm going to say Kevin Smith having a hand in writing it.
Oh yeah,
because he's done so well lately.
That's Kev for you. I didn't mind his man.
Really?
Yeah. The overall story I quite liked. Mm-hmm. The portrayal of some of the characters in it were, annoying as hell, but hey ho, that's not all him. Because those were written by various people. But yeah. So anyway, moving on from the wonderful world of cartoons, Bat Nipples. Mantic have been releasing their tiny fighting halflings for Kings of War, which is all fantastic. And this is a bunch of miniatures from resin to PVC to hard plastic. So about 2 weeks ago, they released the army set that contained the new plastic regiments. These are things like Edge Grenadiers, which are little halfling, essentially jump packers. They have a very tinker-based army list where you get a nice mix of modern technology and almost steampunk-esque things. They're also, you'll be pleased to hear, John, there's a set of dirigible flying cav coming where everyone's got their own little man-portable Hindenburg. Hopefully they won't go the same way. But I think they're due in November. But the Edge Grenadiers are backed up by 2 war machines, volley gun and howitzer. This obviously is the volley gun version. The howitzer has the same crew, but it's a bit more lobby. And I quite like the sort of styling. They have this Edwardian, Victorian steampunk feel to them.
Yeah.
Up to including this. This is the halfling Iron Beast. So the dwarves have a steel behemoth, which is a giant mechanical ram. And in the backstory, the halflings seen that and went, that's amazing. And then cobbled together their own version out of wooden barrels and bits of scrap from the looks of things.
That's stunning.
That's actually from the new League of Infamy game. So that's PVC plastic. But as you can see, the detail on it is particularly good if you're Angel Heraldes.
I love that it's...
Detail's probably still there if you're not him, but harder to bring forth.
I love that it's got the stove.
I was going to say, it's so very halfling, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Just spatula in hand, let's go. Go to war, but sausages.
I do like them. They've a host of infantry as well, with the sort of cookery theme bit, because they've come from League of Infamy, where you're invading a halfling kitchen, essentially. So you've got various chefs with tenderizers and sort of thing. But the cookery side isn't all that they have. Obviously, that was very themed for League, but they haven't carried that across into the plastic set, which you see here. This is the, I want to say it's Battle Group, something like that.
Battle Group, yeah.
Battle Group. So this is two regiment sets combined, giving you a cheaper way of picking up two regiment sets, because the way they've done this, they've actually used 3 sprues in the regiment box, which allow you to make 10 infantry and 5 dog riding.
5 doggos.
So Alares, which are a Baltic mythological creature. If you're unaware of the Arales, I want to say it's Arales is actually, winged or regular, depending on how you're feeling. But you can make more heavily armored versions, which are juggers as your cav, or you can make ranged or melee versions that are sort of more medium to light cav, or all of the weapons also work on the people on foot. So it does mean if you want to make riflemen on foot, you can't make riflemen mounted, because you only get enough to do the infantry. You don't get 15 of each weapon, you get 10 of each weapon. But when you're buying multiple boxes, you'll soon find yourselves with enough additional spears, hand weapons, rifles, or whatever to put them all together to make whatever you want. It's a fascinating list. I used it during the King's War campaign weekend.
To crush your enemy.
2 weeks ago. And they're very different. A lot of people were looking at them going, I hope they're not just a human goblin army, which was the big sort of thing. But they've come up with this sort of steampunky mix of things that have tinkerers attached to them. So you've got your grenadiers, your airships, the Iron Beast, and then engineers can sort of buff those units. And then you've also got sorcerers who use culinary necromancy. Culinmancy. So anyway, they use food. And every turn they change the type of aura that they can throw out to the unit or units within range, because they are naturally resistant to magic.
Right.
That's the way it's written. So it doesn't matter if it's an enemy firing a spell at you or a friendly mage attempting to cast a spell on you to buff you or protect you. Either way, you've got negatives to hit them. So you're not going to heal them as quickly, and you're not going to hurt them as quickly. So to get around that, they've no natural spellcasters in their list. Instead, they have the sorcerers who fire out auras that they can change turn to turn, and then it's on a not D3, it's on 3D6 sort of cast. So it plays very differently than any other army I've played, not just in Kings of War, but just generally. The idea of having auras that you can use and stack up and move around and buff various units with to protect them for their upcoming turn, but also then to gain impact damage in your own turn, and getting that balance is quite amusing. It also means that it lends itself to being quite a mix of styles of army list. You can go full infantry, you can go full cavalry, you can go completely weird and wacky with all the machines you can find. If you want to go all the giant iron pigs and all the airships and flying grenadiers, you go nuts. You can definitely do that. Or if you want to just go, I've got several hundred shiremen who have marched out here to hit you, then you can do that as well. It's
nice that it's not just hobbits, if you know what I mean. They have to be a little bit different with it. So
you'll see more in, I think it is November is the next wave, where the trolls come out. But there's like a docile set of forest trolls who live nearby that work with the halflings. So the halflings can bring trolls in a similar sort of, hobbits and ents always get paired up, and or tree men and halflings in Warhammer days.
And stuff, yeah.
In this case, forest trolls, and the forest trolls do sort of the heavy lifting for them. So
Interesting.
You've got trolls, but you can also have trolls with like baby carriers on the back, firing steps, with halflings with long rifles taking shots, and then when people get up close, then they get clubbed to death by the troll, or they use them to like mow the lawn and harvest the field. So they've got like these big engineered cutting machines, and so you can also have those as like a war machine, where you've got a halfling directing a troll who's pushing this massive spinning whirling blade of death thing towards your opponent until they all go away into bits. So it's a very different take on the halflings than I've seen in a lot of fantasy ranges before.
I just remember what the magic's called as well. It's called gastronomancy.
I knew there was a mancy. Yeah. I've gone all BT there. Technology. I knew there was a mancy.
The Book of Ainsley Harriet.
Yes.
It is one way of doing it.
Ready, steady, kill.
Yeah, I'm 100% behind this. Not just because they look fantastic, but they're another neutral force, which means they can be allied into other armies. So if you fancy changing up what you're painting, if you're fed up with constantly painting ogres or orcs or whatever it happens to be, undead,
throw them into
you can throw them in. Or if you may be playing a list that doesn't have a huge amount of artillery pieces, whatever it happens to be, then you can do that as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be a stormer for people who like the short peoples. But moving on from the halflings, because otherwise I will bring up the army list and start talking.
We're staying in fantasy. We're staying in fantasy at least. So there was a Kickstarter back a little while ago called The Wicked and Wise, and I was my eyes glow towards it because it is a tussle between mice and dragons. And when I say mice versus dragons, that's not what I'm talking about. Obviously, that would be a very, very quick game. Mice and dragons, as in you have two teams. So you have your teams in the game. You have a mouse, a mouse, and a dragon. And these two teams will be battling out one another. So you'll have your dragon who's playing through the games, going to need to achieve the goals, which are put out on the cards. And the devious little mice that is sitting on the side is going to ruin everything, change the rules at every possible opportunity to ensure that they get more treasure. So both teams have their own mice, both teams have their own dragons. So although the dragon might be playing, this mice might be going on the attack, or it might be using stuff for to help their other player, to help their opponent, or they might be completely stabby, let's ruin your game instead. Really, really interesting concept because it's as if there are two different games going on and you both need to support each other.
Yeah.
So I found this really, really cool. So you get loads of tricks to use against the dragon, against the other side, your opponents, and you steal tricks, and it's a big game of stabby dark trickery in all fairness, put through a fantasy theme. But it seems like so much fun to play in a pair. So you'll get goals that you've got to meet, and whoever has kind of manipulated or sabotaged or achieved as many goals will be made the winner out of it. So whoever does that the most. But there it is for up to 2 to 6 players as well. So you can have different teams, obviously not if you're going by 2. And that can take up to about 75 minutes to play. So it's not a real quick sit-down travel game, as it were. It sounds like it's going to take some time as well. And I bet you can get better and better.
Yeah, it does lend itself to family groups, I suppose, playing it as well.
Yeah.
Whenever I heard mice and dragons, I immediately thought it was going to be some sort of cutesy, chibi type of artwork. But it's not. I mean,
it's much more realistic.
Yeah, much more realistic than I expected as well.
I like that it's sort of got that element in it, but it's not just tied to like one person, screwing over the other person for the sake of it.
Yes.
I like that you're playing, as you said, they're two different games at the same time, effectively. So you're trying to accrue the. Maybe that was a Kickstarter exclusive, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm guessing it is. Otherwise, I would have gone mad for that, Jerry.
You've got that sort of achieving your goals as the dragons, but then also manipulating things as the mice, which I think is pretty neat. So
yeah, I really like the wordplay as well. Kind of, I appreciate wordplay. Is that you have your strong dragon who's actually playing the game, and the wise being the wicked versus the wise on so many levels. About the mice is the one controlling the game. So quite a nice. I really like the sound of this one, and it'd be quite a good one to play.
We'll look forward to you buying it and showing it to us.
Yeah, that'll happen for sure.
It'll appear on those shelves behind you any weeks.
Yes.
Time will tell. What's up next, Benjamino?
So next up, we have some stuff from the folks at Riverhorse. You may remember, I think it was last year, maybe the year before that, they released their Labyrinth adventure game, which went down a treat. It was a big one for everyone who was a fan of Labyrinth, the movie, and loved the world and everything that came with it. And their adventure book was effectively a little bit of a mix between a choose-your-own-adventure novel and also a little bit of a role-playing adventure too. You play it by yourself, but you could play it with a group of people if you wanted as well. And you would flick through the book and you would encounter different things as you went, and you flick to different pages as you tried to find your way to the center of the labyrinth. Well, in the Dark Crystal adventure game, which is the one that is available to pre-order now, you'll be diving into another Henson world and exploring that of the Dark Crystal and playing as the Gelflings and stuff. You'll find within stunning artwork, as you can see. I really like as well that the book itself feels a little bit like an artifact from the world. It feels like it has its place in it, and it feels like they could actually be the ones reading through this and covering the lore and everything like that. Talking of lore, there are pages and pages worth of that. In addition to the adventure that you already go on, you've got that lovely map page and everything like that as well. One of the nice things too is obviously you've got that kind of choose your adventure thing where you go between the different pages. Different pages have that different quality to them as well, which will affect how things sort of happen within encounters. So you see that transparent page there? Yeah. That's actually how that looks, because it lays over the page behind it to affect what happens and what you see and how you encounter things as well. Obviously, as I said, this has got like choose your adventure feel to it, but it's also very much a role-playing game at the same time. So you will actually make characters, and you'll have characteristics, and you'll choose, the clans that you fight for and all that kind of thing, and that will give you certain benefits to it, different encounters as you go through them. It looks like another labour of love, effectively, from the folks at Riverhorse, who have put oodles and oodles of care and attention into everything they've done for Labyrinth and the Dark Crystal up until this point. So why would this be any different in many ways? So if you're a massive fan of the Dark Crystal and you enjoy that, and you like telling stories, but you're maybe not as fully into role-playing as as you might be, then this would be a fantastic one to go and pick up, I think, because it kind of holds your hand a little bit. No less challenging than an actual role-playing game, I would say, but a really fun way to kind of like bridge that gap between the two, I think. Which is
I see they've got illustrations by Brian Froud in it as well.
They do, yes. Yeah. So not only does it include illustrations from the original visionary behind it, I suppose, but you also have lots of work in there from the Caesars as well. So they've helped design this and do some of the artwork for it as well. Nice. So if you like the Caesars work, for example, if you like our comics, then this will have something in for you as well to dive into and have a look at. So yeah, very nice.
Superb. We really should get them on the phone and get them to run a game.
We really should. That would be cool.
Why do we not do that would be fun, wouldn't it?
The Labyrinth was a gorgeous book as well. I unboxed it. I'm going to say it was at least 2 years ago.
I think it must have been.
Because it was done in the studio, and I wasn't in the studio for the whole of last year.
Yeah.
So, there we go. 2020 is the year that time forgot, unfortunately. If I had one issue with it was they had a little cutout for the two dice that set in, and it was right by the bottom corner, which meant when you flick pages, you could occasionally rip them. And I did rip one. It's pretty annoying. It's like, so if they could put two little dice slot, I'd much prefer them to put it somewhere in the middle near the spine to protect it. But I don't know if this one is going to have it. I think it's going to go with the translucent pages and that bits and pieces instead. But they were gorgeous book for the Labyrinth, and I imagine this one's going to be the same. I would watch them, except I give my copy of Labyrinth and Dark Crystal to Warren to show to his kids. Going, there you go.
You'll never get them back.
No, I'm never going to say.
That's all right. As long as they watch them, I don't.
That's true.
I know.
Yeah.
It's one of those. What's up next then?
So next up, we're moving to a board game, but the one that is coming to Kickstarter in the very near future. So a lot of people will know that Corvus Belli are working on a new Kickstarter exclusive game, similar to the way that they handled Defiance, a couple of years ago. So Infinity Deathmatch Tag Raid is on its way later this autumn. I refuse to say fall. I'm not an American. And one of the newest miniatures that they previewed for it was the Minescorp Prospector. So we've already seen the 4 different tags that are going to be available for you to pick up as part of the core box. This is no doubt going to be added in as one of the stretch goals or add-ons that you'll be able to pick up for this Kickstarter as it comes through. Very awesome looking miniatures you can see in the artwork there. And we got to see it from sort of the concept stage all the way through to the renders, as you can see, which are looking fantastic as well. Oh man, I love mech suits. And I love the kind of like arm that is controlling another arm thing. I think that's such a cool.
It is pretty cool
aesthetic. Oh my god! you would forgive me for saying, "Get away from her, you bee." When it comes to this suit, I think
we were all thinking it, to be fair.
Yeah, and that may have had some influence on this design. But this Minescorp Prospector is going to be available as part of that Kickstarter, looking very, very nice indeed, painted up stunningly by one Angel, probably.
He's a talented fellow. He should really think about doing that for a living.
You can always tell it's an Angel one by the bases, because he always has this really like stark black way that he finishes off the bases, and then the way that he does the basic material too, and obviously the art style. But yeah, an amazing looking miniature there, as you can see. But if you are interested in Tag Raid, then you'll be able to check out a demo game that the folks at Corvus Belli played. So very own Carlos, who everybody knows and loves within the OTT community, joined up with some more of the folks from Corvus Belli to play through a game in that video, as you can see there. So go and check that.
That's a big one.
So that's the Stormworm. Yeah. So obviously in the game, you're going to be playing as these kind of ragtag mining corporation tags, weirdly, that are trying to fight for control of the planet. So you'll be duking it out between each other, but in amongst that, you're also going to be having to deal with the Stormworm that you have awoken from the depths of the planet, that is none too pleased with the mining activity of the different factions and corporations. It reminds me very much of Tremors, which weirdly I watched last weekend.
Tremors is amazing. You should always watch it.
Yeah, and completely forgot that his name is Kevin Bacon and called him Keith Bacon, only to be told that sounds like the British knockoff version.
It really does.
Right, I'm Keith Bacon.
That's frightening in and of itself. Yeah. I like the idea that there are little, I suppose, depending on the scenario where you build your hex map, there are little places where it can pop up from, but you're not certain where it's going to pop up.
So yeah, very cool looking game, as I say, going to be coming to Kickstarter later this autumn. I would reckon it's going to be in the next couple of months. So watch out for that.
I've seen that, but I hadn't realised just the scale of that.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing, because like the miniatures themselves are tag size, which are obviously massive, and they did say that they were going to be bringing possibly one of their biggest kits they've ever done, and that's where you see the Stormworm, as you see there, dominating things. It looks like a really cool game, and if it's anything like Defiance, the folks at Corvus Belli put some real effort into these, but obviously going to be exclusive to Kickstarter, so if you do want to get your hands on it, you will have to be quick off the mark when it comes up.
Or prepare to spend a ridiculous amount of money on eBay.
Well, yes, true. Yeah,
these things are sent to try us. That's what they tell us. But yeah, it should be interesting to see. I think it's also one that's going to feature SEOcast quite heavily as well.
I would imagine so.
Because I think they were saying tags and above are going to be in that, but they haven't. I don't think they've confirmed yet whether or not the tags will be. But I imagine to keep the costs down, that will probably be a prime example of
makes sense
using their new.
It would make sense for the board game format as well. But
definitely,
we'll see. We finished things off with the return to the Thine Historical, where we have a look at something a little bit different as well, and something that would have saved Jerry a hell of a lot of time.
Yes.
So Peter's Paperboys. So anyone who's familiar with Peter Dennis, one of the best artists in
Dennis's
the industry. Brother. Yes. Also friends with Keith Bacon. But they do fantastic paper craft armies for you to use on the tabletop. Often they're all in sort of like a 28mm scale, so you'd be very familiar with that kind of look and feel to them. But it enables you to print off and cut out an army with very little cost at all. I know. Well, the latest set is a set of terrain for making your very own Rorke's Drift, as you can see here. The set comes with all of the downloads that you then print up yourself, or you could get someone else to print it if they've got a better printer than you, for all of the buildings that were integral to that kind of final stand against the Zulus as they pushed forward. So you'll find all of the defenses, you'll find the big sort of like farmhouse complex, as you see there, and the storehouse, something like that as well, the hospital building and everything like that too. I really like that it has the detailed interiors, as you see there, because it could very well have just been the outside. But they have clearly gone to a lot of effort to do it so that you can fold and pinch and glue everything together.
They have. If anybody follows Peter's Facebook page, which I might, he will normally put up things that he's doing in advance when he's just working out how the building is going to be constructed via the medium of fold, so you get like white paper constructions with no detail or anything on it. He's going, I'm just doing this. So he knows, for example, that is not how the mealy bags were stacked. However, after several futile attempts at trying to do a round redoubt, he went, nope, it's not happening.
Paper does not do this.
It will have to be done this way. I know it's not the correct shape, but that's the cost of working in paper. So yes, don't worry, he knows. No need to write to him. But I also like things like the water carriage. So you can just see it tucked around there. I think it's in one of the other pictures as well. So actually having things like the water carts, having the 2 wagons, you can see one in the background, and presumably the uncovered one beside it. There's a stack of biscuit boxes, so you can build your redoubt. That's all fantastic for anybody who's wanting to do Rorke's Drift on a budget. It's a terrific way of doing it.
I should point out, once you get the download files, you obviously keep them forever. Yeah. So if you didn't want to play out Rorke's Drift, but you wanted to play out something different, these are fairly typical of every colonial structure that you probably would have seen at the period. So if you want to play out a bigger siege or something like that, or a raid or something, you can do that too.
You want to do the Battle of Isandlwana and watch the Zulus absolutely tanking the British force, you can definitely do that.
Yeah. I should point out that the Rorke's Drift set contains only the terrain that you see in this. However, if you do want to pick up the British and the Zulu forces, they do have 2 big bundles, as Jerry is showing off there, which come with every single thing you could ever want for playing the British or the Zulus during this time period.
What a brilliant idea.
Lancers.
Absolutely stunning range. Obviously, it features the illustrations of Peter Dennis. So, you know you're getting quality pieces when it comes to that. You just need a knife, a pair of scissors, some steady hands, some plasters, and some glue.
And a printer. And a printer.
And a printer.
It is. I would say it's a little hobby in itself, the paper craft. And you get some terrific stuff. There's an awful lot of time and effort put in going, will these things be, I was going to say sculpted, will they be drawn so that they're viewable front or side on, depending on the type of thing it is? And at one point, I mean, there's a little Maxim gun.
That's phenomenal. It's made out of paper.
He's done bigger books with a publisher before, where the actual, I think he did H.G. Wells' Little Wars.
He did,
so it contains both the original wargaming set of rules plus the papercraft models, but the cannon, you could actually assemble it, put a elastic band in it, and then fire matchsticks just like they used to, and whoever gets hit by a matchstick is dead. So it's a good way of doing it. You can also rescale them, I will say that.
You can. As well. You just pop in a printer and choose the resolution and stuff. And
again, the papercraft community is massive.
Really is.
So it's a good place to go and say, I've seen people going, I'm looking to print these in 10 mil or 15 mil or whatever. And they'll go, well, you'll cramp the resolution beyond this point. So don't try and do it too small, or here's the ratio you need to use if you want to do it in a specific scale. And people obviously have gone up as well. The shields on the Zulus are separate. No, there's 2 sets of shields on the Zulus. He does bits and pieces when they actually get the set of pages. So they'll come with a shield, but then there'll be separate shields around the outside. So you may have a black and white shield for one regiment, and then you can just stick the red and white shield over the top if you want to change the regiment type.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Which is handy.
You'll power through the Pritt stick with these.
Get it with some of the characters as well. Also, if you've ever wondered what the best set of scissors are for cutting out papercraft miniatures, then go to the Papercraft Facebook page, because there is a specific type that everybody uses. They're like really fine with a slight curve on them for getting in. If you don't want to be spending all your
sounds like nail scissors.
It does sound like.
Oh no, they're specific type of shears.
Oh, special scissors.
I bet they sell them in hobbycraft.
More than likely. I was expecting Jerry to say, "Well, if you want these papers, or if you want these scissors, here they are."
I haven't gone to Papercraft yet.
Yet.
I was waiting for him to finish the Zulus, to be fair. I want to do Isandlwana.
I will say that
doing it in 10 mil. So
if you're not particularly interested in Rorke's Drift or that period, the Peters Paperboys selection is vast. There is Dark Age. There is all sorts of things out there for you to go and check out. Medieval. As Jerry was saying, he did work with the publisher at one point, and you can, as long as they're still in print, buy like sets that are like you can play out 1066, and it comes with all the paper inside that you just then cut out yourself and all that kind of thing. So if you don't want to worry about the hassle of printing things off because your printer's terrible, for example, then if you can find those, they're really great. And they come with their own set of rules, as Jerry was saying as well.
Hellion is the publisher for that, and he's done American Civil War, American Revolutionary War,
Medieval,
Spanish Armada. There's the Medieval Vikings. There's the Jacobite Rebellion.
Quite the plethora,
1745. There's a whole host of them. There's a Roman invasion of Britain as well. And they are just, you buy the book and every page has got a set of figures and the background to them. So it's a great way to get kids into history as well and do a bit of craft with them.
When he does papercraft tanks, we'll have John picking up a set.
Every time.
John will have the scissors.
The Little Wars book. I'm going to see if I can find the Little Wars book actually before we go anywhere else, because obviously when Wells wrote Little Wars, it was written as essentially a tabletop war game, although he played it on the carpet. But he wrote another book that was quite famous, which is War of the Worlds. And in that Little Wars book, there are some English/British civilians and tripods lurking in that book as well, so you can sci-fi up
very cool.
in a
that's awesome
Wellesian fashion. I can't find any nice version. I'll just have to there's the Amazon version to show people. A tasket. But these
give Jeff Bezos your money.
Well, no, don't do that. Just go to Hellion. No, he'll just go to the moon again and throw things at us. Nobody wants that. You just see them in the background, the little tripods kicking around. Yeah. These are all 54 mil. So
that's awesome.
But,
that's a really nice touch to just, I
would love to see that image.
I think that's fantastic.
They're the really nice kind of things that you'd find weirdly in like a castle gift shop, and you'd be like, "Ooh,
yeah, you're right."
I don't fancy those Lancers' chances, to be brutally honest.
No.
That sucks to be those guys. Anyway,
very cool.
So there we have it.
Yeah,
that's our news for this week. We're going to take a break. I'm going to think about halflings, and when we come back, we'll be looking at some 3D printing.
3D printing is indeed the shiz. And so we have been having a look at some funky stuff out there that is a little bit different from what we normally do. So a lot of the time we tend to look at some sort of stuff that is like fantasy based and all that kind of thing. But Velrock Miniatures or Velrock Art is pretty fantastic for those of a more sci-fi persuasion, I think. And you can look at the immediate gravitation towards the free. So Velrock Art has been running their My Mini Factory, and there's also a picture and other things we'll look at in a second as well. But they do some very, very cool 28/32 millimeter miniatures that you could use in your sci-fi games. Be there something perhaps sci-fi related in a galaxy far, far away, or for something entirely different. With things like Stargrave and 5 Parsecs from Home really, really sort of taking off of recent years, or recent months anyway, I suppose. I think this collection is fantastic for that kind of thing, because you can use these to fill out a crew of sort of like hardened military veterans or explorers and that kind of thing. And you can do it all from the comfort of your 3D printer.
For space pirates as well.
Exactly. This was one of the sets that I was particularly drawn to when I first clicked open the My Mini Factory page, because I was like, hold on a second, these look like absolute badasses.
Is it the faceless visored masks?
It is the faceless visored masks.
And the Star-Lord ones then?
No, I love those style of masks. They're a pain in the ass to paint, but I love them for their kind of look and feel. And as we were saying when we were talking about flying miniatures free earlier, you've got the kind of like burst from the jetpack there that you can use as the sort of the pinpoint to hold them onto the miniature, the focal point of the miniature as well. That's very cool. So yeah, some very nice stuff in that sense. And I like that it's kind of like high sci-fi in many regards, but could also be used for sort of like near future stuff as well. So like that doesn't look entirely beyond the bounds of possibility from, say, for example, the next 20, 30 years. You could see that soldier fighting alongside sort of like normal troops on the ground and grunts and stuff as well, which I think is really cool. But yeah.
Yeah, with the little flippy up iron sights on them as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing high sci-fi about that. That's somebody with some form of grenade launcher.
No lasers here.
Just needs a rough ballpark of where that's going to.
And sure one-holstered. And one-holstered.
I'm sure someone would say to drill that barrel, but either do that digitally or afterwards. But
they only say that when I paint something without a drilled barrel.
That's true. But it's a really this kit in particular. If you were going to try and do like a very themed crew for something like Stargrave, I think these would be fantastic for that.
Yes, it would be brilliant. What I liked when you see the kind of one of them, all of them together, you can really tell male and female. You can see by they don't look generically all in different poses, but look like the same character. You can see evidently what one's female, what's not, without having massive breastplates on them, and without forcing you to say that this is a woman. It's quite nice to see the variation where everybody's using the same kind of uniform, but it's quite obvious to see the individual characters in them.
We'll say both the snipers firing, neither of them are looking down the scope. See, it goes alongside. The standing ones alongside as well.
I like to think it's because their goggles have telescopic lenses.
That's the one then.
Maybe those aren't sights, Jerry. Maybe those are cameras.
But you've got streaming it back home.
Yeah, you got some really funky bits and pieces in here that I think are, so. For example, things like where's the one? It's slightly above that. I think that's a really cool one that looks like the Rocketeer. Yeah, the Tempest Guardsman Captain. I think is really cool with that kind of that sort of plumed helmet at the back. It's really cool. Up, Jerry, then left.
That one.
There we go. That's the one.
Oh yeah, that is very cool. It's very these are very Destiny-like.
Yes, in regards. Yeah. But what's quite nice about this one as well is obviously it's got that sci-fi aesthetic, and you can see that popping up as sort of like the law enforcement trying to track you down and all that kind of thing. And it's kind of like a little bit of a weird sort of Judge Dreddy thing going on as well, which is cool. But if you swap that pistol out for something like a steampunk like revolver or something, that model would still work, I think.
Yeah.
You just add some sort of clockwork elements to it, and I think that would be perfect for some kind of like steampunk police running around in like America or something.
Yeah, paint it in bronzes and brasses.
Yeah.
Even that, but put a flag in the hand at the front.
Yeah, there you go. Stop.
White flag. Didn't say white, but
yes. More halflings, Jerry.
More halflings.
Very good for an engineer, just saying.
Oh, yes.
But so got there's a really nice mix of different things in here. The sci-fi stuff was what immediately caught my eye, but I really like they've obviously got lots of fantasy stuff in there because fantasy is massive. Yeah, and you've got kind of almost like this sort of like weird sort of fantasy pirate crew that's been put together that I think is really nice. And there is just a wacky assortment of different creatures for you to use in your games. So there you go.
Do you know what? This is coming from somebody who loves a bit of whimsy and loves a bit of fantasy. I like seeing cute dragons. Sometimes dragons do look really scary and really awful. And sometimes I just want a nice, cute dragon in my game. I like this because it looks whimsical. It does fit in that fantasy universe.
Nice fairy dragon thing.
Yes.
Which are obviously
a lot of fun painting the wings like butterflies.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But
someone else can do that. Yeah. Like, how cool is that?
That's gorgeous.
Anchor.
Yeah,
I did see
looking thing.
I did see a male and female, what was it, werewolf pirate, and I was like, that's just a bunch of words that I love being together.
Yeah, I think
look at that.
Had to show that one because I know John likes his.
I like my plague
doctors. Yeah, yep. Lot to be said. Although I think he's spreading rather than curing. Could be wrong.
Could be.
It
That
must
could
be
be a
something for me to
green.
cure. Yeah. Order of the Dark Heart.
Oh, that's very cool.
Interesting.
That woman is so cool looking.
They look like vampire hunters, don't they?
Yeah.
Just
So
incredible.
He's so cool. He would be me. I like a hunter in a big coat with a massive gun and a beard. That's the way to go.
We need to get you the hat, Ben.
Dustin Stetsons. That's how you know the magic's happening. Ooh, pirate.
As we found out at Expo, Ben, everybody needs a big fancy hat.
But that is true. That is true. Yeah.
But apart from the My Mini Factory, they also have a Thingiverse. Is that separate but different?
So a Thingiverse sort of allows you to pick up a whole bunch of files anyway. But over on the Thingiverse, they actually have a lot more of their free stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that you saw at the top there was free miniatures, which was those kind of like Star Wars miniatures, which definitely are Star Wars miniatures. But this is another sort of repository of a whole bunch of their kind of like free stuff that you can download and print off to your heart's content. So if you're looking for something that's maybe a little bit more stock pose and static, then you have some options here. A lot of it is obviously a lot of the sort of earlier work that they've done as well. But you can just download it and have fun, play around with it and see what you think. And tweak things to your heart's content, which I think is really cool.
That's kind of cool.
It's amazing considering it's free.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's a hell of a hat.
Yeah.
Quite a hat.
So much so you have to print it separately. My hat's too massive.
So yeah, some really nice stuff there that is free for those people that are maybe starting out with the 3D printer, John, that want to try out different things and test out their printer, and maybe not necessarily on the scale of like a massive BattleTech mech. We've all seen it, John.
Look,
the last week's 3D printed section, right?
Mm-hmm.
I even told Jerry after this, I've bought a bunch of those.
I got a ping at
11.
Late at night.com.
Late at night.
Going, what was the link to that thing that we just looked at? I was like, okay.
It was these, and then I was like, and I've bought a bunch.
Yeah.
Oopsie. That's the way to do it.
John certainly doesn't need any new ideas then.
So yeah, loads of stuff over on Thingiverse, although I think a lot of their newer stuff is then ported into My Mini Factory.
Yeah, the My Mini Factory stuff looks a lot more like detailed, and like you were saying, like the poses of the stuff are more dynamic and stuff too. So.
Yeah.
A lot of
145 designs for free though. That's not a bad start.
Not at all.
A lot of it's come through, obviously, through the idea that then their Patreon is up for you to go and back. So if you want to get your hands on stuff and give a little bit of money to Velrock, then you can do that, and you will help fund their habit of creating STL files for people to dive into.
Those membership level, those membership levels are great.
Too legit to quit.
A fan of MC Hammer. Too legit to quit. What? Is it the 90s? What year is this? Anyway.
So obviously you've got all these different elements that you can go and pick up, and you get them earlier if you do this through the Patreon, which is always nice. I should add, oh my God, I love those Leonine Warriors. They're very
those are badass.
Cat people.
Oh, he's not going to be on Patreon for long.
No!
Now, this is something that came because I'm just reading that I will be transitioning to a new blah blah blah. Somebody mentioned this a couple of weeks ago in our forum that there's a new Patreon starting.
Oh,
in the same way Kickstarter was Kickstarter for a while. Now there's Kickstarter and Indiegogo
and GameFound
and blah blah blah. So now, if you want your Patreon stuff, you're going to have to go and scrape through 2 sites at least, and I'll give it a little while before somebody else starts another site. And I know that a lot of people who are currently either big on Patreon or established for a while are moving across, because like the first 100 or 200 who moved to this new site to sort of populate it with their stuff are getting some sort of bonus / reduction in costs.
Fair enough.
So a load of people have just gone, bye Patreon, loved you, see ya. So
there we go.
You either get in quickly so that you know where he's going to, or just go and Google what's going to replace Patreon.
Yeah,
it's I imagine this could be a pain in the backside for us going forward, Ben.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that in addition to a Patreon that's possibly moving, on My Mini Factory page and a Thingiverse, There is also the ability to get these as a digital pack to use alongside Tabletop Simulator.
Amazing.
So if you're doing lots of your role-playing games through digital means, and you want some creatures and monsters and all sorts of different things to use in your games, then you can download the digital packs, just bolt them on as an extension to Tabletop Simulator, and you will have access to them. So
yourselves.
Great idea.
A nice way to just avoid having to use standard sort of tokens and that kind of thing. Instead, level things up with some fancy miniatures, as you can see here, and use those in your games. If you're a whiz, maybe you could even take some of these and colorize them and stuff as well. That could be kind of cool. So yeah, some nice stuff there. And a good additional sort of like freebie again from Velrock for people to dive in and have fun with. So that's cool.
Yeah, there's quite a choice as well. There's quite a choice of those digital ones. So you won't have a hard time looking for your own.
I love companies like this that are like, they're putting a lot of the stuff out for free, but their newer stuff's a little bit of a price behind it, but not very much. And then also supporting that tabletop simulator side as well, that digital side. It's great to see, because I guess it's not that difficult for them to support each of those.
No.
So I wouldn't imagine so.
I do know quite a lot of people that do role play online, and I know a lot of you guys obviously use Tabletop Simulator, and a lot of people have been using it throughout lockdown, and it is a nice change to see that that publishers and people who are making stuff are targeting the people that are using it online and adapting to the way the world's going, I suppose.
So it's
a wacky way of the future, isn't it?
If you're
get an app, Jerry. Let's get an app.
If you're interested in some 3D printing goodness to maybe download over the weekend and have fun with, make sure to go and check out the various elements of Velrock Art, be it through Thingiverse for free or My Mini Factory for a couple of buckaroos, and give it a go yourself. So,
fascinating stuff and a stunning collection.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days.
Moving away from the world of 3D, though, and taking a look at our Kickstarters. So, first off, we actually have tiny fighting miniatures made by people using 3D, but then cast in resin, so I don't have to worry about it. Bless them. And this is MV Creative, are returning to the wonderful world of Greenskull Castle with their heroes and legends.
Look at that label at the top there, Jerry.
I have backed this.
Yes.
I backed it. If I hadn't been doing stuff, I would have backed it the minute it launched. As it was, I had to wait for 90 minutes after it launched before I was actually at a computer to do it, which is terrible. But yeah, I have backed it for everything because I have their old stuff from their last Kickstarter. So these are a set of goblins and additional monsters, the big guys, for whatever you want to use them for. They've been toying with the idea of possibly producing some form of game in the future, but at the moment they are just standalone fantasy goblin miniatures with in some cases, a pulp feel, in other cases, a sort of popular culture aesthetic dropped over the top. For example, we have there a very Gotrek looking like goblin. Look, he's only got one eye, like Gotrek's supposed to. GW, please pay note. But the previous one had Witcher-esque things and a He-Man looking fellow for Greenskull Castle as well. So this time round, they've got a collection of, I think it's 18 miniatures currently, although they have unlocked an ink, which we'll see when we get down the page. That was the previous Kickstarter with the Assassin's Creed Goblin and various.
I remember you showing us.
Yeah, eight heroes, and then 6 of the big guys with some additional bits and pieces added on.
Yeah, and they have this unusual aesthetic of the big nose.
Yeah,
which I love.
I like the
makes
rotting.
them stand out so much.
The rotting on the one underneath that you're on there, the rotting at the end of the nose,
the fat guy.
It's nice, yeah.
But they also have these cutesy little rag dolls with them.
Oh my God.
And they're all over the place. So you've got a little, like we've seen the monk earlier doing a monk pose. There it is at the base of the samurai goblin. There's also, I think that's the druid, has got 3 tiny ragdoll worshippers prostrating themselves at the base of the tree. And the Knigget So there's a paladin has got a tiny bucket helmed one with a little, hobby horse.
Yeah.
That's great.
Kicking around. But different pledges, but I'm going to skip on past those. You can work it out for yourself. You can either get some or others or individuals or all together. I went for all together. I'm scrolling down because I want to see the pictures of the painted stuff because I know they're down here. One of the things they've done, which is quite nice, apart from showing the scaling, also they come on these little round bases that are the perfect size for 30mm round-up bases, like the Privateer Press ones. They just fit straight in like base toppers, which they've never mentioned, but somebody must have known because it's a weird size. They're like a 22.5mm round to fit specifically in there. Look, there's ink, not link.
That's
ink.
Great.
As the first of our add-ons.
I imagine they're just crushing Navi to dust.
But the bigger bits and pieces, they all have little sort of not only names but storylines attached to them. I need to go all the way down here. There we go. There's the gallery. That's what we're here for. Bump, bump, bump. To see some of these painted ones. So you can really see some of the details that you might not be able to pick up on the renders or resin casts from things like the crusading paladin-looking goblin through to the witch doctor.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Who's absolutely gorgeous. They did this in the last campaign as well, where they sent these out to a whole host of top-notch painters, and the results of which you really get to see just how amazing these things are. Can I get closer? How big are these images? That's the only thing that annoys me about Kickstarter. You can't embiggen anything. A pain in the backside. I hate you, Kickstarter, and your edible. That's why people's leaving you and going to GameFound. You have big pictures. Anyway, where am I? Yes, you can see the detail that goes into them. It's a really interesting aesthetic. I think most of these have been sculpted by Lukash, who did a lot of the stuff for Volsung. So he's their digital sculptor.
Actually, kind of explains quite a lot.
Yeah, but they have a very distinct look, shall we say, between them. Donk is obviously awesome. Look at Donk. Look at this tiny little monk ninja. Ragdoll.
I want them to bring out all the ragdolls in a little base on their own.
Oh yeah,
that would be cool.
The ragdolls are amazing. The Illidan looking goblin from the last Kickstarter has a tiny Illidan ragdoll with 2 warglaives running behind him.
Oh my god.
And they're like 5mm, maybe 6mm tall. They're just so small. That one I kept thinking looked like the priestess tier kit from Black Temple, but it's not.
It's the Reaper of Souls, I think, from Diablo. I think.
Oh, in that case, at least it was Blizzard based, which is why it was probably familiar to me. But yeah, a set of exquisite models. Up to
I love this one.
The Kratos one.
That's that God of War one that you kept
best bit
is
the
other week.
You can tell the painter really preferred the ragdoll to the rest of it because he's just given it so much personality.
Yeah, you can't not look at the ragdoll, can you?
What I will say is one of my favorite YouTube painters, Marco, previewed that, not that paint job. He's got his own on his channel. I think it's going out this Friday, maybe. And I was briefly messaging him last night going, you've got them. You've got one of them, you lucky. Definitely go, I've got more than one. It's like, Marco, you're only in Dublin. That's only 2 hours away. You start peering in through people's windows to find them. But it'll be interesting to see what he does with them because he's a fascinating painting style. But apart from the little guys, there's our first stretch goal unlocked. And instead of a ragdoll, he's got just a ragdoll head with wings being his little fairy.
Come here. Hello.
How awesome is that? The bigger things are stunning. They did a monster and a war machine, I suppose you would call it, in the last one, where they're 2 big resin miniatures. This time around, they've got trolls, orcs, abominations, and demons that can be bought individually. I love the cave troll delicately holding a goblin by the ear, or rather, what's left of it. It's going, I almost stepped in this. Horrible. No. Wow. And Jurgen, the abomination. I'd like to have seen that from a slightly different angle, because I think this forearm ends in like a crab claw, like a demon.
Oh!
but you can't tell, and every picture's from the same angle where you can't really see what it is.
It looks like a blade, like a bone blade.
Yeah.
Could go either way.
I think that one was my favourite when I saw it initially. Yeah.
I'll let you know what it's like when it arrives. And they're calling back Stellaron, the giant rat, pretending to be Russell Crowe, screaming, "Are you not entertained?"
It really is.
I mean, it writes itself.
Second Gladiator reference.
Yeah.
So well done, Jerry.
So Ted Baldus.
So Ted Baldus, the giant skeleton, probably my least favourite out of them, because I think he's a bit static and dull in comparison to all the other madness that we're seeing.
I think you could see a face, that would have been...
Yeah, you can see just the hint of a grinning death's head in there.
If that was painted, I think I'd be able to appreciate it more.
Yeah. I mean,
kind of Dark Souls-y, sort of.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I was then told, no, it doesn't equate to anything in Dark Souls. Now, Dark Souls fan, stop shouting at me. However, when you compare how static he is, and by no means is he a bad model. He's just
not at all. Yeah.
And then you look at the Banshee going screaming bejesus with no eyes and a big, mouthful of stabby teeth and a huge tongue, like lead singer of Kiss. It's all going on.
Gene Simmons of Monsters.
Yeah, that is all going on here with manacles and chains. So, yeah, stunning set of.
Very nice.
If I hit that, hey, that goes back. Ooh, there's the two I was talking about. Those were the big ones from the last. Megazork and Muzenkranth. Like Muzenkranth and Guildenstern are dead.
I was going to say that.
So, a whole host of
really awesome
of miniatures, and a variety of ways you can get them. Like if you don't want to pick all of them up, if you just want to pick up the heroes or pick up the monsters, they can all be done. Oh, there's a slightly better picture of that. Yeah, it is some sort of bony spike protuberance.
Yeah.
But I really hope that they push on and do something game-like with it, because they have obviously a backstory. They write sort of lore and fluff for the miniatures, even if they're just going to be something that, like a witch hunter is stabbing a zombie hand as it comes out of the ground with a stake. They're
so much detail.
Beautiful miniatures, and the quality of the casting when I got my set was just superb.
Well, they say, I think it's in this bit, they say that they go through like a process of being checked and like clean, checked that they will be clean. So once they come out of the molds, they should be perfect.
I have worked with an awful lot of companies and an awful lot of their resin, and this is right up there. So much so, whenever I backed it, I got a little survey to fill in, and the last question was, what could we do to improve our product? I'm going, I don't know. Sweets with it. Honestly, I can't think of anything, because I've built 20 odd of these.
It's gorgeous.
And just a case of taking them off sprue and putting them together, and that was it. The mold lines were practically non-existent.
Well, they said that even if there are mold lines on there, they're strategically placed and hidden so that you won't necessarily see them. So.
Yeah.
How were they to build, Jerry?
Oh, they were a dream.
Really?
Even Big Stompy Guy went together particularly well, especially once I took the
not
time
loads
to
of pieces.
Big Stompy Guy is the most, where they went to extremes with fingers and stuff. But then he's only got 3 fingers per hand. But the individual goblins, as few pieces as possible. I think my pirate,
right.
I don't know where I've put the pirate, actually he's in next door. Pirate is, I think, head, body, flamingo on his shoulder, then hand with a sword.
Common sense stuff.
So they're not one piece models, but they are as in few pieces as possible, where the majority of it will be the body and legs in most cases, and then it's just a case of arms and heads or weapons, whatever happens to be, to make them the easiest way to manufacture and to build. But yeah, I can't wait for these. When's this coming? November. Okay.
Boo.
At the same time, as a lot of other Kickstarters delivering as well.
Well, that's I don't know. That's all right. That's fine. We're all fine here. Anyway, those are the people in question. So they're responsible for emptying my bank.
Lovely and terrible people.
Yeah, in equal parts. But if you're interested in picking up any of them, and the entire range, bar a couple of Kickstarter exclusives from the first Greenskull Castle, you can add in as add-ons. So if you want an Illidan based goblin, or you want an Assassin's Creed goblin on top of a doghouse, then you can do that as well. You can grab them here.
Brilliant.
Or if you go to the original one, they have like a pledge manager, so you don't have to wait for this one to actually fulfill. You can just go ahead and get them via sort of a late pledge almost, but they're shipping. They've already shipped, so you should be able to get your hands on the earlier stuff. Cool. And you've got 17 whole days. No, you don't. We're so far ahead.
16 whole days.
16 whole days.
60.
Wow.
Threw us off today.
Yeah, very much so.
What day is it?
So to round out the show then, Ben, we have another Kickstarter, and this time we're looking at paints.
That man there. So Duncan Rhodes, previously of Games Workshop fame, and his two thin coats, which became his catchphrase.
Mm-hmm.
They're big and upcoming. Well, he then went out, obviously, and started his own YouTube channel and did extremely well. He's now teamed up with Transatlantis Games, which I have to get right, to create his own range of paints, which are called Two Thin Coats, as you would have imagined, because branding. So, according to the man himself and the Kickstarter page, this is a set of paints that have been designed from the ground up and tailored specifically to the style of painting that Duncan Rhodes employs. So if you are interested in painting things in the same way that Duncan does, as you know, following his YouTube videos and all that kind of thing, then these are pretty much designed for you in many regards. There are 54 colors in the set, in the large full range anyway, and 6 washes. You can get all of them if you wish, or you can get individuals too. Just to go through the kind of the sort of like nuts and bolts of the mechanics of it, I guess. And as you can see presented here, the way that it's been designed is that you have a color, so red, for example, and then there are 3 different elements of that go together. So there's a shade, a mid-tone, and a highlight. And it's been designed very much similarly to Citadel's range, and a lot of other ranges out there, I suppose, as well, where you can follow this through as a new person and be like, well, okay, well, I base coat in that, then I use that for my mid-tones, and then I use this for my highlights, with adding a wash in between that at the same time. In addition to that, according, again, to the master of ceremonies, that is Rhodes, he has said that they have worked with their chemists in order to create paints that are vibrant, give you good coverage, and also thin down well, as you would assume they would do, being a range called Two Thin Coats. It looks like a fairly extensive collection. Not only are there your sort of basic colours in there, there's also plenty of earthy tones in there. They're also doing metallics, which have been designed with the newest chemicals and whatnot, apparently. So they're not like your bog standard metallics from back in the day. These have real metal in them.
So they're using aluminium rather than mica.
The Kickstarter is now up and live, and you can pick up for yourself, as I mentioned, either all of the paints, some of the paints, one of the paints, 2 of the paints, 15 of the paints. You can also get a whole bunch of add-ons as well. Who would have thought you'd be able to buy paints in a paint Kickstarter?
Wow.
You get some add-ons as well, including scenic bases, a couple of miniatures and stuff, including ones themed around the kind of iconic fellow that is sort of like his sort of branding image as well. So you can use that too. So Sir Coates can be added into the mix alongside a villainous fellow too, which is pretty cool. There's lots of stuff that has kind of been already unlocked because obviously this Kickstarter has exploded. It has raised a ridiculous amount of money so far already. It will, just to close things off from my opinion anyway, the proof will be in the pudding. The tutorial video that he showed off looked pretty good. I think the miniature turned out nicely. The paints seemed like they went on well. And I like the idea that they've said that they're going to be designing this from the ground up. So it's kind of like, it's not just repackaged stuff, at least from what we know anyway. And all all of that being said, it'll come down to using them on the table when you get them in front of you, because people can promise everything and they can show you lots of things in videos, but if it's actually usable when you're sitting down to paint stuff, that is where it truly comes together. So I would hope that this is going to be something that is readily available to a lot of people around the world, rather than it just being something that is incredibly hard to get hold of.
I agree. I agree with you there, because it's you get. I suppose everybody in this industry knows who Duncan Rhodes is, and everybody knows where he's coming from. And I'd love the idea that these come out as super awesome paints, and they're the greatest paints, and they're worth the money what they're for. But I really hope that this doesn't suddenly go to retail, and once the Kickstarter's over, you can't get some things, or that certain highlights can't be there, and it becomes an exclusive thing for paints, for something, a tool that necessarily we need to use. I think I'm in the same boat as you, Ben. I'll see when it comes out. I'll have a look. For sure.
I'm not interested in backing the Kickstarter, as I know a lot of people have said already, like comments and that kind of thing on social media. I'm more than happy to try it out at retail, because anything that makes painting easier is great.
Absolutely.
So if these are good, fantastic. But more power to them, I suppose. So.
The paint quality itself, like you say, Ben, I agree with you. The proof is in getting a paint and actually trying it.
Yeah.
But coming from my perspective, where I've had access to Vallejo, Army Painter, Citadel, AK Interactive, and some of the other brands out there, Scale 75, this, touting that this is a really good paint set is like saying Vallejo's one of the best in the market, because it just is. They have a lot to live up to. There's a lot of expectations from professional painters on the quality of the paint. Mm-hmm. And as I agree with Free as well, accessibility to this stuff once it's actually past Kickstarter and is out there in the wild, because we've seen plenty of Kickstarters that have went brilliant, and then once they've hit retail, the stock has went and it's gone, and you just don't get it back. So there needs to be a good level of follow-up with this, and the paint needs to actually live up to the praise. So I will probably try it, but
it's one of those. It's one of those things where you have to try it to really know, kind of thing. Because when you look at miniatures created by a Kickstarter, it's fairly easy to, especially if they show off like a final version. Or if you know it's from a trusted source or something, fantastic, it's going to look like that. Paint can be a fickle beast. As a lot of people will know, looking at any paint range,
any
and
tool.
It all comes down to any tool. Effectively anything needs to be tailored properly, and it's a very big market that he's stepping into doing this.
It'll be interesting to see what the distribution is like, because if a hobby store is already carrying Games
Citadel.
Workshop and Vallejo,
Very
Painter,
true.
or Scale 75. Do they really have the room to stock another paint range? Mm-hmm. So I think an awful lot of it will probably come down to online sales through their own store and through some of the larger ones.
This transatlantic games.
I can't see, it would be a big thing for an established hobby store to go, I'm no longer going to stock a paint range I've been stocking for a couple of years, because I'm going to put this one on the shelf instead. Because the paints may be very different, or they behave differently. I have a friend who uses Scale 75 all the time. I barely touch it because it behaves so differently, because it's gel-based rather than water-based acrylic. It's a great paint, but it's not for me.
Yes, I agree with you.
And if they suddenly just go, I'm going to take that one out and put this one in, you're going, what's that? I stopped using Games Workshop because they kept changing paint colors. And I've had Vallejo for 25 odd years, who have consistently maintained the range at the same quality and the same. If I buy a pot of paint now, it's the same shade exactly that I bought 25 years ago. And that consistency is why I stick with them. Because you can never tell what you're going to get and how it's going to behave, and whether or not you're going to have the colors that you want without having to start mixing them.
I agree with you. Go on, John, you go. Go on.
Sorry, but the problem with Vallejo is, you and I both know, Jerry, that Vallejo is an excellent product, but Vallejo doesn't really sit in the wargaming circle that much.
No.
It's definitely more in the scale model world, even if they have done like their game color range and stuff like that. Wargamers mostly aren't either that aware or that able to access it that much, because they half the time they don't know what they're looking for because there's not enough people stocking it.
Yeah,
a lot of. Sorry, go on, Free.
No, what I was going to say is that I agree with Jerry, because the amount of paint that's out there, I had it all with glue. I had to figure out what glue I liked. I had so many people giving me, when you're building miniatures, you should use this glue, you should use this glue. This is the best glue. The best glue out there was something I didn't get on with. It's going to be something, I think it makes me think, especially since I've been miniature painting and doing hobby, I don't think I'd like, unless I knew it, I don't think I'd like to buy paint online. Unless I knew it and knew the colour and knew what I was going to get out of it. I think jumping into something which is a new brand in its entirety, nobody knows what it's like. I think I might personally feel a bit comfortable doing.
Scale 75 is a prime example of that. They ran a Kickstarter for instant colour.
Oh, those ones that you picked up,
Yeah, and I love them. But a lot of people bought them thinking they were going to be something else. And that Kickstarter had 12, 14 videos, some of which were hours long, showing people painting miniatures and busts from start to finish using the things and showing that they worked pretty much like a very thin glaze. And yet people still got them and went, they're very thin. Well, yes, that's
people
exactly
don't
how
read.
they're supposed to be.
Or watch.
But they've got it in their head that they were going to be buying something that was going to be like a dropper bottle version of Contrast, which is not what it was ever set out to be. They didn't refer to it that way. And none of the videos showed it behaving like Contrast. But people were going, oh, I'm not going to back another paint Kickstarter because of how this one turned out. I went, that one turned out exactly like they meant it to. But if you don't know what the paint is going to behave like before you buy it, you could find yourself with a ton of stuff that just isn't going to be your cup of tea. It might be that it's spot on. You just don't know until you get it and try it.
I think that I'd really like to see, especially with this, because I don't think we see it on the Kickstarter at this particular moment, is I'd really like to see this out in the world with other painters on YouTube, for example, us giving it a go and that kind of thing. I'd love to see more people, having a play around with it, showing off what it really is like. Yeah. Obviously, it's nice to see Duncan painting with it. That's fine. And I'm sure the paint works as the paint, but there are lots of other hobbyists out there that paint things very differently to Duncan, and I'd love to see how they get on with that. And again, that's not something that you're going to get, until a couple of months down the line when this Kickstarter's over and this is going to get shipped out and stuff. So, as I say, more power to him for doing it, and I think it's great that there could be more tools in the hobby arsenal, because there's never anything wrong with having more things to play around with. But the proof will be in the painting. When it finally comes down to it, I think. So,
there you have it. So that wraps us up for another week's worth of hobby news and Kickstarters, goblins and halflings. That's all people need. It's all this episode. I'm going to get the editor to trim this down because it's going to be a long one. It'll just be goblins and halflings, and then we'll just all go home. But we will be back on Sunday morning for our XLBS, for all the cogs out there to listen to us waffle on about hobby, ours and yours. If you're not a member of the Cult of Games, you can become one with a 30-day free trial. Ooh, look how generous we are. So come on over to OnTableTop.com and sign up and take a look to see what we're doing. Don't forget, if you are not already a subscriber to the YouTube channel, when we hit 100,000 subs, then somebody will be winning the Kill Team Octarius box set. But until next Friday, I bid you adieu.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.